Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So, this is my story time about how a black pastor asked me to twerk on him. Yes, that's right. An actual pastor, like the preachers. So this was actually when I was at an HBCU. So, I went to a black college, and on the college campus, they had like buses that would come to the campus because they had a lot of local black churches where they would try to get college students to come. So they have young adult ministries and stuff. So every Sunday, they had a shuttle that would come to the dorms. And like, if you wanted to get on the shuttle to go to church, you could go to the church. So I had this one friend. She was an unambiguous, mono, dark skinned black girl. And I met her through my modeling thing, like through doing modeling stuff. So she was really cool and we were friends and she went to church. And so she was like, "Oh, hey, do you want to go to church with me?" So we had this little like girl sleepover and stuff. I used to hang out in her dorm. So one day I was staying there from Saturday to Sunday, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm going to church in the morning, so you can just come with me if you want." So I happened to go to this church with her, and it was a black church. So it was something like what you would see out of a Tyler Perry movie. So I'm talking like the robes, like the gospel singing, the screaming and shouting. And there was a person that was on a walker and she like got off the walker and then she like held her walker up in the air to show like, I got healed. And they were like running around on the church. They were doing the clapping and stomping thing and like shouting. Yeah. So it was one of those types of churches. And that's fine because like my big mama, my grandma, she went to those types of churches. So I grew up partially in that background, but I mainly came from the mega churches, like the white mega churches. So think of like Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, those types of churches. I actually grew up on both of those people. So that was more so my background. But anyway, there was this one guy who was a part of the church. He was an unambiguous black guy, and he was actually in his 20s. So he was young, and he was a gospel singer. So he was like really, really good at singing. So in the black community, you already know how it is. If you can sing, if you're a black guy who can sing, or if you're an attractive guy who can sing, black women are going to treat you like you're freaking Chris Brown in the black community. So this guy, he was like a really good singer. And it turns out he was actually the young adult pastor. So I ended up kind of going to that church and kind of hanging out with kids on the campus who were a part of like the young adult ministry. Some of the girls, they were also into singing and stuff like that. So it turns out that that young adult pastor, he actually went to my HBCU. So he went to the same HBCU as all of us, but I just didn't know him because he was actually a grad student. So I remember he asked my friends, he was kind of asking my friends about me and then they brought me around. My friends didn't know that he was like kind of interested or whatever. And I didn't know either because, yeah, no, he was just not my type, to put it nicely. So I remember one day he kind of like walked up to all of us and he was like, "Oh, hey, what was your name?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, I'm Exoticals United." And he's like, "Oh, hey, my name's Tyshawn." So that's just a name that I made up. But he was like, "Hey, I'm Tyshawn. So you go to the HBCU?" And I was like, "Yeah, I go to the same HBCU." And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah. I don't think I've seen you before." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, what year are you?" And he was like, I already graduated. I am in grad school." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm studying music." He was studying like either vocals or music, something that had to do with like being a musician, basically. He was like, "Yeah, I've already double majored in political science and economics, and now I'm coming back to get my doctorate." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, wow." So, it was very impressive, quote unquote. So he was one of those guys where he would constantly talk about his accolades and achievements. And there's actually nothing wrong with that. I mean, I come from that kind of background as well. I've only been exposed to kind of the bougie black community. I've never really hung out with like a bunch of thugs and gangsters and stuff. So I didn't see anything wrong with his personality. But a lot of the girls in the young adult church and like at the HBCU in the Christian part of my college, they like pedestalized him. And by the way, as far as his phenotype, he was a short, unambiguous dark skinned black man because he was not even tall. He was literally like my height. He had a dark skin tone. He had the 4C hair, all of it. He was African American, by the way. He was not Nigerian or anything like that. So they all pedestalized him a lot. They would try to like sing with him or try to sing in front of him. Like some of the girls from the gospel choir and stuff, They would try to sing with him. He would actually ask girls to sing, and then he would try to like harmonize with them, like some black people shit. Okay. And I'm saying this because I have family like this where they will make you sing, or like I remember my big mama, she made me join the choir with her, and like she was a soprano, so I am the soprano. So they used to do stuff like that. So that was cool. We were just vibing well. And remember, he's the young adult pastor. So he's a few years older than us, although he was still in his 20s. And a lot of the girls, they really looked up to him. They really like trusted him and stuff. They were always kind of texting him, calling him, talking about him when he wasn't around. So I didn't think anything of it. I thought he was a good Christian guy. So it turns out he planned out a movie night for all of the young adults to like go to the movie night. So we all came to the movie night, and I happened to come, and he had reserved like a whole row for all of us to like sit next to each other. So I remember there was one of my friends, she was actually this unambiguous black girl, and I don't know if she liked him or what, because I noticed that she would always cock block around him. So, for example, she would make comments about my hair or my appearance. You know how people make negative comments like, "Oh, your hair got puffy." Like she would say stuff like this. Your hair got puffy from the humidity. I noticed that she would say that around him specifically. So I still didn't think anything of it. I just thought that maybe she was being a little insecure or whatever. So I didn't really think about it. And I remember Pastor Tyshawn, when it was my turn to walk into the row of the movie theater, like to sit down, he was specifically watching where I would sit because he was trying to sit next to me, apparently. And so my friend, she noticed this and she said, "Oh, Exoticals United, I want to sit next to Jasmine on this side of the row. Like, I want to be closer to her. So can you sit over here, like on the end?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." So I went and sat on the end because I don't care about who I was sitting next to. I was just there to see the movie. So then this guy comes in and he says, "Oh, I want to sit next to Exoticals United." And so then my friend, she looks kind of like, "What?" Like kind of shocked a little bit, like, "Wait, are you serious? Like you want me to get up and move basically so you can sit by Exoticals United?" So she complies and she gets up and moves over, and then he like sits next to me, and I am not thinking anything of it still. And so we end up watching the movie, everything's normal. And then I noticed that my unambiguous friend, she was really trying to get this guy's attention. Like I could tell they really looked up to him. And I can see why, because he was actually very talented. He's actually a professional gospel singer now. So I saw him on YouTube not that long ago. So I can see why they like looked up to him and everything, but I still didn't think anything of it. So after the movie, he was like, "Oh, what are you ladies about to do?" And we were like, "Oh, we're just going to go home, just go back to the dorms and stuff." And he was like, "Why don't we go and kind of walk around and like explore the city a little bit?" And by the way, this is after all the other young adults had kind of cleared out and they had all started to go home. So at this point, there was only me and my two thirsty friends who both really liked this particular pastor. And so I remember I was thinking, "Oh, I might want to go home. Like, I don't know." And they were like, "No, Exoticals United, like, just stay with us. Like, yeah, we're just going to go explore." So I was like, "Okay, fine." So we start kind of going around the city and just kind of seeing what's around there. I remember we stopped at like some sort of ice cream type of place. So we got some ice cream and everything was pretty normal. But I noticed that this guy, so he would talk about God a lot, which is fine. And I would talk about God. And it turns out this guy was a fan of some of my favorite shows. Okay. Anything by Shonda Rhimes. She is a phenomenal writer. Okay. So he starts talking about Scandal and Grey's Anatomy. And I was like, "Oh my gosh. So you like stuff that's written by Shonda Rhimes?" Because back then I actually was interested in being a screenwriter. Because you guys know that I like writing outside of this. So he was like, "Yeah, I like Grey's Anatomy." And I was like, "Oh my God." So we started talking about Grey's Anatomy a lot. And I was like, "Oh my gosh. So did you see, like, who's your favorite character on Grey's Anatomy?" And he was like, "You know what? I don't know how I feel about Addison." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I love Addison. I love her vibe, like her hair color. It's so nice. I just feel like Addison is so much better than Meredith. Like, Dr. McDreamy should have definitely been with Addison, but whatever." So I started kind of like getting excited and like really opening up. Normally, I don't even speak to guys, just in general, because I'm very like stuck up in that way. So, but because he was like a Christian and stuff, and I felt more safe, I was like, "Yeah, oh my God, Addison and like Meredith Grey." So we started talking about it. And then he starts talking about like Scandal and stuff too. And I'm like, "Yes, oh my gosh, that's my show." So we ended up becoming like really cool because we would always talk about Grey's Anatomy and stuff like whenever we saw each other. So I remember there was this other time where we were having another young adult meetup. And by the way, at this point, he had started asking me to like hang out. Like anytime my friends, my thirsty friends, anytime that they were around him, he would always be asking them, like, oh, where's Exoticals United? Like, what is she doing? And then I would end up coming back like to the young adult meetups and stuff. And so I remember there was another time where we had a meetup and he did that same thing where he's like, oh, what are you ladies doing after this? And again, we were like, oh, I don't know, just whatever. And he was like, okay, so let's walk around and kind of like explore the city again at night. And so, by the way, it was me and there were two other girls and then this pastor. So it's literally one guy and like three girls. If he would have ever asked me to hang out with him alone, I would have instantly said no. But I felt safe because I was with my friends. So we would kind of walk down the street. We kind of developed like this camaraderie. And by the way, I was the youngest of the group. So it was me and then my two friends who were basically upperclassmen. One of them was actually a grad student. And then he was like a grad student as well. So we were walking around and we passed like these bars and lounges and stuff. And there was this one lounge where the guy who worked at the front, my friends actually knew who that guy was. And then he said we could all get in for free. So the three of us three girls and him, we could get in. So, first of all, isn't that a red flag? Why the fuck is there a young adult pastor walking around with three women late at night and then we're getting into a lounge? Like, how did this even happen? So, whatever. That's the first thing I was thinking. But then I was like, oh, whatever. It's not like we're drinking, because none of us drank or smoked or anything. So we all go into the lounge and like they were playing 90s R&B music and I dance in real life. So of course, when the music comes on, like we all started dancing and stuff. And like, it was really fun actually. And by the way, we were not like grinding or anything. No, no, no. This was totally like more wholesome. So the actual lounge, they had people of all races in there. So black people, white people, whatever. And so we just had a good time and then we went home. And then we actually ended up going out again another weekend. So isn't this getting progressively worse? Like, okay, we started off hanging out in church, then it went to a movie night, and he's like trying to sit by me specifically, and then it went to us going to a lounge once, and now it's his birthday actually. So for his birthday, the pick me girls, they really wanted to get this guy's attention. So they were like, hey, we're gonna like hang out with him for his birthday and like plan this dinner and stuff. So I didn't go to the whole dinner part, but I agreed to meet up with everyone after the dinner, maybe later on that night. So we met up later on that night. We ended up going to a similar type of lounge place, and it was one of those outdoor rooftop types of lounges. So we ended up going there, and he was like, oh, hey, like I was really hoping that you would come. And I'm like, oh, yeah, hey, I'm here. And so I noticed that he had this habit of like, whenever I was around, he would kind of ignore my two friends so that he could talk to me specifically. And I actually liked talking to him at the time because we would talk about my favorite shows and we would talk about like the writing style and kind of the storylines of the shows and stuff. And we would talk about how the greatest TV show ever, which still is, it's Lost, by the way. If you've never seen the TV show Lost, you're missing out. But we would talk about stuff like that and kind of like compare the writing and production style. So we would always talk about that sort of stuff. And I remember we were at this little lounge place and we were dancing and stuff, kind of dancing in a circle, just like facing each other. And like it was a lot of fun. And I remember he was like, hey, do you see that girl over there? And there was a girl that was actually twerking on a guy. There was one black girl in the lounge and there was a guy up against the wall. And of course, she was like shaking her ass on him and basically like popping it and dropping it like it's hot. And he was like, so do you see that girl over there? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, can you do that to me? And I'm like, wait, what? And then he was like, I saw you twerking. And he was only saying that because he saw me just kind of dancing. Like I was not twerking as in like really like throwing my ass in the air. I wasn't throwing my ass in a circle. I was just, doing a little bounce or whatever. But I remember I was so shocked. I was like, huh? And he's like, it's my birthday. You don't want to like twerk on me or something? Like, can you just give me a little twerk? And I remember I was so floored, I didn't even respond. I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe my other friend, she might want to do that. And I feel kind of bad, like throwing my friends under the bus. But at that point, they were already very thirsty for him. And I didn't know what to say. So yes, I know that was not the best response. But I just was so shocked and floored that a pastor, literally, we were calling him Pastor Tyshawn, so like I viewed him as a pastor. I viewed him as more like the friend zone pastor guy, like this man of God. This guy really had asked me to twerk on him. And I remember I told him, I was like, oh, yeah, maybe my friend would want to twerk on you. And then she kind of looked over because she overheard what I said. And she was like, huh? And then basically both of my friends were like, yeah, no. And so we ended up leaving. We left the fucking lounge because nobody would twerk on him, or because I wouldn't twerk on him, or because apparently that like killed the vibe. So yeah, after that, it was actually extremely awkward. And basically I kind of stopped talking to him. Like I stopped talking about all the TV shows and stuff because I just felt like that whole time I was like, wait, was he just talking to me and stuff and kind of like bonding with me? And did he ask me to sit next to him and stuff? Was that all because deep down inside he potentially just like wanted to fuck or something like that? So yeah, after that I kind of stopped talking to him, but he is now a gospel singer. So welcome to the house of the Lord, because he may be singing at your local church if you're a Christian. Anyway, that's my story time of a black pastor asking me to twerk on him. That is not my only story that I have of guys in the church, by the way. I just feel like a lot of guys, they seek out positions of power, whether it's in a church or in a work setting. They do this so that they can have access to whatever type of woman they like. And I forgot to say, sorry, I just like screamed in the microphone, but I also forgot to say a part of the reason why I thought he didn't like me was because he said he liked dark-skinned, unambiguous black women. I remember there was a time where we were talking about types, and he said that his type was Gabrielle Union. He said he thought that Gabrielle Union was beautiful and like whatever. He would like kind of fawn over her and stuff. So in my mind, I don't look like Gabrielle Union. So I was thinking, okay, whatever. Like I never thought that he would view me as somebody that he wanted to twerk on him. I thought that he would like my unambiguous friend, who did actually look like Gabrielle Union. She was dark skinned, she had dimples, and she wore her hair in like a silk press, and her hair was kind of like how Gabrielle Union's look. So my friend was right there who actually looked like Gabrielle Union. So I don't know if he was trying to triangulate. I don't know if he was trying to kind of sexualize me, because you know how some guys, maybe they want to marry one woman and then the other woman, they want to sexualize you and fetishize you, and they view you as kind of like their sex doll or something like that. So I don't know if that's what he was doing. But I remember that was another reason why I was not suspecting that he would have any sort of interest or that he was attracted to me in any way, because he had specifically said that he likes, his type is Gabrielle Union, which that's not exactly how I look. So I was thinking, okay, no. If he would have said Lauren London or somebody else, then I would have been like, oh, okay. But because he had said Gabrielle Union in the past, and also because of height and other things where I would not be interested, I had never suspected anything. But yeah, so I'm not surprised that that happened. But what do you ladies think? Have you ever had a guy who pretends like you're not shit, or he just pretends like you're friends, or it's supposed to be a safe setting, like he's your therapist or a teacher, like a professor or something like that, or a pastor in this case, and then suddenly out of nowhere, he starts talking about your ass? What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.